So good morning, everybody, or afternoon now. I'm Catherine Sanders Reach. I'm the director of the Center for Practice Management at the North Carolina Bar Association. The center is a resource for you to be able to leverage consultations, blog posts, events like this. We have a weekly newsletter, and basically, I am on standby to help answer any questions you have about managing not the substantive practice, but the management side of your practice, the business side of your practice. And obviously, AI has infiltrated practically every conversation that you have these days. So I'm going to do my second of what is probably many programs on Microsoft Copilot, primarily because Microsoft Copilot is a product that, because you may have already enveloped and embraced Microsoft 365 in your enterprise or or firm environment, um, you've already probably done the homework to figure out whether or not it's safe enough for client work. And so the Copilot subscription is basically inherits the same kind of privileges and um, availability and confidentiality and all the things that is already evident in Microsoft 365. Not to say that is 100% safe. Nothing is 100% safe, but we're all kind of trusting Microsoft at this point, whether we should or not. So there are two primary products that you're going to see in the Microsoft 365 plan. So this is assuming you have Microsoft 365, either the business standard, business premium, or an enterprise plan. So that's kind of our baseline. And this is, again, not your personal Microsoft 365. This is the Microsoft 365 for business. Then there are two different ways you can access Copilot, which is their AI model that lives within the Microsoft 365 suite. One is a free product and it doesn't cost anything extra. And if you haven't paid for it, you're probably seeing the little Copilot button popping up in your Microsoft 365 applications like Outlook, Word, Excel, etc. There is a paid product. It's $30 per user per month. You may be able to get it for $20 per user per month. They're messing around with pricing depending on kind of which product you have for the 365 suite. The main distinction is that the Copilot that's free in your 365 subscription is does have the same security as the paid product. What's different is it's just not as functional. And I just read an article that said they're actually going to be kind of degrading or degrading the functionality of the free tool because they're trying to push people into the paid tool. So what I'm here to do today is to give you a sense of what that paid tool looks like, whether it's something you're paying for a couple of people in the organization, or you're already paying for it and feel like you're not getting the ROI on the investment, which is something that when I first got the paid product for Copilot, I was seriously unimpressed and kind of abandoned using it. And over the last year since I've had it, it has significantly improved. And I don't know if that's because I'm getting better at using these tools overall, or because the tools gotten better, or a combination of both, and also just trying to use it more frequently. So it's basically a productivity AI. It's looking inside your business applications. It's looking inside your Microsoft 365 tenant. And it is to get the kind of functionality that I'm going to show you today, it is something that you have to pay for on top of your Microsoft 365 subscription. It doesn't train on your data, so it is using two different models, primarily ChatGPT or OpenAI, and Claude from Anthropic. It doesn't train either one of those large language models on your data. And the other thing to be aware of is that it respects your Microsoft 365 permissions. So here's a little graphic. Your data, obviously keys to the kingdom, confidential information, privileged information, secure financial information, all that stuff. It interacts with Copilot but Copilot doesn't send it to the public model except to do using the reasoning engines behind the public models, but it's not sharing your data over to it. The other thing that I need to be clear about is that Microsoft Copilot only sees what you can see. This sounds reasonable and logical, except for the part where in some firms, depending how you had your Microsoft set up, say for instance, you had a library in SharePoint that has all of your human resources data, and only the HR professionals in your firm can see that, or the administrators in your firm can see that. If that library wasn't specifically set up to bar other people from seeing it, that basically it's only secure because it's not something that other people can see, because they're not looking for it. But if you can see it, you shouldn't be able to, then Copilot will see it and you'll see how that works. So if Alice can see her data, Bob can't see her data. Alice Copilot can only see what she has access to. So this is kind of a data hygiene thing to be aware of. Where this may come into play, and especially in smaller firms, is if you've decided to use Microsoft OneDrive instead of SharePoint. And I actually worked with an attorney who had an IT person set up OneDrive as their shared drive. And so he called me and he said, my assistant can see everything in OneDrive. I don't want her to be able to. And we had to reset all of his permissions, and create an area where his assistant couldn't see some of the things that he wanted to keep private. So that's one thing to be aware of, is being kind of cognizant of how this stuff is all set up. In a perfect world, in Microsoft 365, you're using SharePoint as your kind of file server for the whole firm, and OneDrive as your personal information, or the stuff that you're not necessarily sharing across the firm. And so that is all in your setup. And again, you'll kind of see what I'm talking about as I go through these examples. The other thing to be aware of is, and you've all heard this as you're using these uh, AI tools, is that prompting is really important. I've seen some people use fewer words than they use in a Google search to try to prompt these tools. Your mileage is going to vary dramatically based on how you explain what you want from it. You have to give it kind of a goal. What is the end purpose of this thing that you're doing? And context. The more context you can give it, the better. Now, the nice thing with Copilot is it's going to pull context from other things that you're working on, but giving it a goal and expectations, giving it additional source material, not, if you have a folder where your kind of gold standard templates are, tell it to look at that folder as reference. So sources are important, and then go back and forth. There's also this concept of meta prompting, which sometimes I find is very useful, where you say, I want to be able to do X, Y, and Z. What's the best prompt that I can use? And it'll coach you through writing a good prompt. I've seen some firms billing themselves as AI native firms. Don't even ask me what that means exactly. But I will say that one gentleman posted on LinkedIn that he was writing 2,000 word prompts. I don't think that's necessary, but I do think that recognizing that if you say find my files on AI, you're probably not going to get the best results. You're going to get a bunch of extra stuff. So if you feel like you're getting too much or too little, or it's not on point, try changing your prompting. The other thing is, as you work with this tool, it's working in context. So if you're going to switch over to a brand new concept, start a new chat. Otherwise, it's just going to continue to build on the chat that you've got going. And so if you need to switch over, switch to a new chat altogether. So the rest of this, we're going to be taking Copilot for a spin. I will note that sometimes it goes flaky on you. Sometimes my computer goes flaky on me. So while I'm going to do live demos for you. Just be aware that sometimes things take a while. Computers flake out, your processor croaks, whatever. So hopefully nothing bad will happen today, but I'm just warning you, it's a real live demo. The other thing is that all of these products are in permanent beta. They change, they take things away, they give you new things. Um, Giving it feedback is is helpful, but be aware that you need to tell it, I'm sharing my feedback, but don't use my prompt or the information I've given it as part of that feedback, or just skip the feedback altogether. Or you can get on some sort of chat room and give them feedback, or tell whoever sold Microsoft to you your feedback. Um, the best way that I know to get return on investment from Copilot is to experiment. So, and Copilot did help me create this very cute graphic, and it did exactly what I told it to. Told it to make it cartoonish and make it a lab and put funny things in it, like a mouse behind a beaker, and it got my mouse behind the beaker exactly as I requested. But before you give up on it or think it doesn't work right, keep working, and just kind of give it a test every day, see what it can do. That's where I've kind of figured out where I think it works, where it doesn't work. And it does seem to get better as I use it. So it's supposed to be a productivity enhancer across your Microsoft applications. One of the things I will readily remind you is that the more you use the Microsoft 365 suite, the better Copilot works. So if you are using NetDocuments for your document management system, and you're not storing any documents where Microsoft can see them in OneDrive or SharePoint, it's not going to be able to access that information, and thus it's not probably going to be it's not going to pull that information. It can pull it from your Outlook. It can pull it from, other sources, but I have found that the more you use things like Teams chat, Teams for meetings, OneDrive, SharePoint, all that, the more context it has, the better the responses are. So there's a couple of things to be aware of as you're going through this. We're now able to choose which model, whether we want to use Claude or we want to use ChatGPT. And within ChatGPT, there may be multiple models you can choose. I'll show you as we kind of go through where you make that decision. I tend to find that I like Claude better than ChatGPT. In some of the applications, you don't get a choice, but it's always worth checking to see if you can tell it use Claude versus ChatGPT, or if you want to use ChatGPT deep reasoning versus the auto. So the default is auto. Basically, it picks what model it's going to use to respond the best to the query or prompt that you've asked it to. But sometimes you can force it. The other thing is when you're in tools like Microsoft Word and you're using Copilot, you have to give it permission to allow it to edit the document. Otherwise, you're just querying and conversing with the chat, but you're not actually making changes to the document. So that's an option that you have if you want it to make a change. Now, the good thing is it'll make the change to the document, but you can discard it and undo it pretty easily. And then within settings, there's some personalization that I think is really helpful to set up. Weirdly, the settings globally for all of the tools are in one interface, but Outlook has its own settings. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Um, be aware that unless you turn it off, it is maintaining a chat history. And there's also a thing called a prompt gallery. So if you need help getting started with a prompt, there's a whole prompt gallery that you can leverage to kind of get ideas about how you can use things. Another thing that I use a good bit is scheduling prompts. So you can create a prompt, And these are good for kind of these global things. Like for instance, and I'll show you, I have a prompt set up to kind of give me a daily briefing based on, what my day looks like. Um, Tell me what I should be preparing for. It often offers to create a Eisenhower matrix for me to prioritize what I need to be doing today. And that's based on what's on my calendar, documents I've recently worked on, emails that I've gotten in the past day, responses that I've given, all sorts of stuff. So again, the more you use the full Microsoft suite, the better this kind of thing is going to work. Um, and then when you're going through, you can choose whether you only want it to look within your Microsoft 365 suite, or in addition, look at what's publicly available in the web. And that distinction, the publicly available through the web, is important because again, if you have to log into a system, whether that's Clio or Lexis or Fastcase or whatever else other tools you're using, Microsoft Copilot cannot see those things. Even if you're logged in, it still can't see anything on the web that it can't access without freely access. But of course, there's plenty of things that are freely accessible. It will change the responses. And so I tend to keep web turned off. When I'm using Microsoft Copilot, I really want to be leveraging um, my own work. And if I need to use the web, then I'm probably going to use an entirely different model. So the first thing we're going to do is kind of look at the main interface for Microsoft 365 Copilot, and that's that chat interface. It will frequently suggest to you that you install the app. So in this upper right-hand corner, it says install apps. We've already installed 365, but it will also say the mobile app, which you're certainly welcome to do, and the Copilot desktop app. Here's a weird thing. The Copilot desktop app does not seem to update the way that the web page does. So I just have this page open when I open my browser. I am using a Microsoft Edge, logged in with my or my Microsoft 365 account, because it's already offering me different levels of security. It's offering. So here I am logged in with my work account. Um, it, it just helps keep things a little bit more secure, a little bit more grounded in what I'm doing altogether. And then you can just go to m365.cloud.microsoft and it'll take you to this page, and you'll want to log in with your Microsoft 365 credentials. And you get this page, and this gives you all the apps that you get through Microsoft. And then other tools that you may have, Adobe Acrobat, for instance, or Calendly, or a Clio, things like that. But to get to Copilot, and this again, at this point, we're going to be using the paid product. Um, I'm going to go over in this side rail on the left-hand side, and I'm going to click the Copilot icon. And when I click that, it's going to change the screen and it's going to bring up a new chat. And so again, you'll notice I've got this defaulted to work, not web. I could switch it over, but I'm going to keep it like this. Remember, I said you could choose your model. So this one is just going to, based on what you ask it to do, it's going to decide which model is best. If you want to force it to use Opus, which is the Claude, the current Claude model, we're going to switch it over to this. And then in this little arrow, if you are doing something and you don't want it to remember and record the chat, you can use a temporary chat. And then finally, in this tiny little button up here, you can see recent things you've worked on, scheduled prompts, and settings. And you can, again, turn off web search. If you go into settings, there's not a lot you can change here till you get to personalizations. And in personalizations, this is where is spend a little bit of time kind of adding instructions. So I'm going to go to custom instructions, edit instructions. And here I say who I am, even though technically it knows that I'm going to give it a little bit more context about me. I write and create content for a legal specific audience. So it tends to not have to ask me that over and over, who's the audience for this? Unless I ask otherwise, when generating articles and paragraphs, deliver them in narrative prose with no numbered or bulleted lists and avoid using em dashes. I prefer internal documents, emails, and chats over external sources when answering questions or looking for information. So you can add as much context and information as you want and that personalization. Um, uh, so someone just asked, and I'll repeat that, is there an advantage to using Copilot's online version instead of the desktop version? My experience recently is that the desktop version for whatever reason, doesn't seem to keep up with the latest and greatest. And there's no button that I can find that says update. So I've just been using this, the web interface. And like I said, I just set my browser to open it when I open the browser, which is something that happens every morning of my life. And so it's right there, and I just keep it. You could open it as a whole new window. So it's kind of constantly in your taskbar. So again, the personalization is there. Um, and then you can just start asking it questions. So I'm going to show you, and then, okay, so that's that. Um, and then within the chat interface itself, you got some buttons. So add content, and you can upload work content. Again, this is where having it tied to your OneDrive, or if you have another cloud file storage like Dropbox or something like that, syncing with your computer, you can attach them there, or you can upload images or add work content. So this is again going to give it some grounding information, some contextual information without typing out a 2,000 word prompt. You'll see below here that it's also suggesting agents. I'll talk to you about agents in just a second. You can also dictate and try voice chat. So if you prefer to, if you're a person who's always dictated, and that's a comfort level for you, I tend to type, so it works for me. It also shows you some starter uh, prompts, which you can look through. And if I'm going here, this isn't necessarily, I don't need it to tell me what I want to do. I pretty much know at at that point if I'm going over there. Um, Down here, there's a prompt gallery. It's just to show you what the prompt gallery is. If you're thinking, okay, I need to, oh, and I should also warn you, I'm using examples from my world. Your examples and your worlds will be different. And even within the folks that are in with me today, I've got in-house counsel, I've got private practice in different practice areas. So the examples I'm going to show you today are not from doing legal work. It's really to give you a sense of what you can do, the way you interact with this, the reasons you use this, all of that kind of stuff is going to be different. But there is a whole prompt gallery. You can say, I'm looking to catch up, and I'm in legal and review similar cases, get an email summary, track cases, all that kind of stuff. Generally, I don't start with the big chat um, to interact with individual applications. Um, so to give you a sense, though, of how I used this just yesterday, um, and I'm just going to use a actual interaction I had with it yesterday. So yesterday, I was on a Zoom call with a coordinator for the Tennessee Bar. I'm doing a program for them. We were going to have a discussion about what program I'm going to do that works best for their conference. And so I was using Zoom. Now, if I had used Teams, I wouldn't have even had to kind of go through all these steps, but instead I used Zoom and I took some notes. And so I said, here are my notes from a call with the CLE coordinator at the Tennessee Bar. I'm providing the keynote opening presentation. Based on the notes, help me write a title and description. Um, and so I copied and pasted the notes into it and hit go. Now, underneath this prompt, I can edit the prompt. If I wanted to run this prompt again, I can copy it. I can schedule it. I can save it, and I can send it to someone else only within my organization. I can't go send this to people outside the organization. And so then what it does is it goes through and it says reasoning completed in 2 steps. It did congratulate me on my good call notes. Um, Here's the title and description. So answering, looking at the notes, here's the title and description um, based on what it knew. So then it asks me, do you want to adjust the tone, length, or emphasis? Do you want to make it shorter? And again, you've always got these options to copy it, give it feedback, share the prompt, edit it, turn this into a note, schedule it, read it aloud, or export it to Word. So the more, depending on where you are, always look at these little options down to see what you can do. Um, I want to give her shorter options, so make it shorter, marketing friendly. And so it gave me 2 options. So now I've got a long version, 2 short versions. Um, and I said, okay, turn this into a page so I can get back to it. Your pages are actually stored um, in your library. So when you get an output, you can actually store that output as a page so you can get back to it easier. Or, like you saw, I can open it in Word. Now, here's what I think is kind of interesting. As I go through, um, it shows me what sources it used to give me the responses. And so it looked at email, it looked at programs I've done that I mentioned. And so it's pulling from all this stuff. This is all the things that I have in Microsoft 365. So when I want it to look at my whole body of work, not just Outlook email or not just Word documents, presentations, emails, other pages I've created, everything kind of in totality, then that's where I start here. And it does a really good job. So and then it shows me, looks at a whole lot of information to give you these sources. And so I've done quite a number of programs on using AI and ROI for AI and all that kind of stuff. So it picked one up. Then I was able to say, which option do you like best? She chose B, and we move along with our day. So that's just one example of where I might start here um, with the prompting. The other thing is, I mentioned that you can schedule prompts, and this is the place you do that. So I'm going to show you 2 scheduled prompts that I've created. So you can put the prompt in here, and then once it's done, you can say schedule it. And then I've got 2 scheduled prompts, and this just runs automatically for me every when necessary. So I've got one, create a daily task list prioritizing urgent and important items. And I can go into here and I can run it now. I can edit the schedule. So we'll click on edit schedule. So that I have this starting tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. I'm going to change this to every day except for Saturday and Sunday until next year. And then receive an email when the responses are ready because I don't want to have to come back in here and check this thing. And then I'm going to click update. And so now it's going to be sending me a daily kind of briefing of what's urgent and important coming up for today. I have it sent to me at 8:30 so I can review it. The other one I have is I have a standing meeting with my boss. So if I click on this, um, help me prepare for my weekly meeting. And review email discussions from the past week, including emails I was CC'd on or he was CC'd on to cover all our bases. Repeat this basically the morning or the day before I have my weekly meeting with him, get an email response when ready. So you can do things like that. And just save them, and then you get an email and you can kind of check through. Is it perfect? This is the least perfect of all the use cases I see. Um, Sometimes it gives me bizarre information, so it's no excuse for keeping up with what's actually going on in your day, but it is helpful because sometimes it does unearth things that I might have let slip my mind. The other thing that you're probably seeing here is agents, and agents are basically predefined. Remember when we could go in and set personalization? Well, these are basically little bots that have been predefined with specific personalizations. I'm going to check my chat for a second. Um, okay, somebody said they're using Net Documents for document management. How do we link Copilot to our ND materials? That is a question to ask Net Documents. I don't know if you can, because Net Documents doesn't want to allow other applications in to see it. Um, but you may be able to synchronize it on a server in SharePoint or something like that. It's not something that I've necessarily explored. Anyway, okay, so these are agents. We've got research analysts. So I can go and click on all agents to see what my options are and click to see more. So these are the ones I've pulled out. There is an agent for Word, there's an agent for Excel, there's an agent for PowerPoint. You can click your PowerPoint agent and work as, and create presentation slides, things like that, or you can just work within PowerPoint. So I haven't found that the agents are any better or worse than working within the application itself. Again, you can click on sources, whether you want to incorporate the web or not. You can search in your 365 data. So say I've got some sample files that I want to use or a folder to look in. I can also add other work content, cloud files, all that kind of stuff. So that's what some of the agents do. Some of the agents just are better at, for instance, if you use the writing coach, it won't write anything. It coaches you through the writing process, helping you um, kind of figure out your outline, how you want to approach the writing task, that kind of thing, um, or bounce ideas off of it. So different agents are designed to do different things because they're given pre-coded instruction. My experience with the agents is that the ones that are for Word and PowerPoint and stuff, they're fine, but it also works just as well in Word and PowerPoint. Um, you can also pull in agents for third-party tools, and this may well be where you can incorporate like a Net Documents or a Clio or something like that. You have to go see if it's available. So you can just look at, they have lots and lots and lots of agents, and there's even an agent store. So let's see if there's a Clio agent. No. Let's see if there's a Net Documents agent. Yes. Okay. So there's a Net Documents agent. So there's the answer to your question. I hadn't looked before. Now we know. So that's something. Now Documents wants to sell you their own AI tool, so be aware of that. And I don't know how well it works, but it's worth giving it a shot. The two agents, or the one agent that I do find is particularly useful, is this one called Workflows. And this is an automation agent. And so if you've ever used Microsoft Power Automate, this is Power Automate, but without having to actually do the coding. So you can just tell it in plain language what you want it to do. So in this case, I've got an agent that says, whoop, well, I don't know what it's doing. It's thinking. So this is the agent that I built. When a new email arrives in Digest, detect a mention, an email, and send me a Teams chat. So the NCBA, as you're probably aware, has communities for all the sections and divisions, and I'm on all of them. I can't monitor all of the email from all of those every day to see if someone mentioned my name, in which case I would want to go and try to help them. So what I've done is I've set up an agent that says when I get a new email from the digest, look through it and see if my name is mentioned. And if my name is mentioned, send me a chat notification in Teams so I can go and look at the digest to see why someone has mentioned my name and if there's something I can do to help. So that's what it did. And I just gave it in plain language what I wanted to do, and it built this. And then you save it. You can also run tests on it. So if you've ever tried to build an automation in Power Automate, try workflows agent because again you can just tell it in plain language what you want to be able to do and it will build that in Power Automate for you. So I think that's kind of useful. And then if you've ever built a survey in Microsoft Forms, this is actually if you like say you started working on your survey and you started creating a list in Microsoft Word, you can go in and say, take this Word document that has all the questions for my survey and turn this into a survey instrument, and it will do it. So some of these agents actually can be super valuable. It's just a matter of remembering to use them. The other thing is you can build your own agent. So if you click on New Agent, and this is, again, I told you this was a 201, so it's a little bit more advanced. You can build an agent, basically give it a name, a description, instructions, where it's pulling knowledge from. Are you pulling it from files, meetings, and notes, in SharePoint, Teams, Outlook, the web? You can add specific URLs, um, search all websites. You probably have that turned off. Use specific sources, reference charts and org charts and profile information. What do you want to be able to do? Create documents, charts, and code, create images. You can give it suggested prompts and then and describe what you want it to do, and you can create your own agent. And so I'm going to show you. I did this very early on, so don't laugh at me. I did create my own agent and it was called the Legal Tech News Agent. And what this was supposed to let me do is go through and let me see if I can edit this agent. This was when it was in a different interface. It's a lot better now. Give it a name, a description. This agent searches the web daily for top 5 news items focused on legal technology or lawyers using technology and sends actionable information to email. Search the web daily. So I've given it this agent. It's, now I'd probably do this as a workflow versus an agent because I know better. But again, and then you can update it, you can share it with people in your team, that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's agents. It's a little more advanced, but certainly some of these that are predefined are worth using. Um, then there's notebooks, and if you have heard of Google's Notebook LM, 365 or Copilot has notebooks as well. And so what notebooks do is allows you to add specific content and query against that content. So let me see what I've got here. So I created a notebook that just has a couple of specific um, articles I've written about Microsoft Word, specifically styles, and then I can query um, against this. So it kind of gives you a summary of what's in here. Um, I can get an audio overview, and it will actually give me like a little mini podcast. I can go into specific items in here. Um, Shows me what it's referencing. I can chat with it. I can ask questions about it. You add references by just going in here and adding your own files, um, uploading them, hooking them into OneDrive. You can also drag PDFs in here. And then if you want to add web links, click on Add Link. If you've used Google's Notebook LM product, you will find that the Copilot notebooks are not nearly as good. In terms of ease of use and being able to get the reference sources in here, once you've gone through the painstaking process of getting them here, then it's actually helpful. So you can put URLs in one at a time. And that's notebooks. The other thing you have in here, and this again is not necessarily something that many lawyers are going to use, but just in case, is this whole area called Create. And you can create images, videos, infographics, stories, posters, edit images, and then you've got all sorts of other things that you can do with it. Since I write a blog, I generate and I don't pay for Adobe stock anymore. I just create images that are specific to the blog post that I'm writing. So it stores all the images that I've created. Anytime I create an image for a slide deck, it goes in here. So um, there's two of the images I created for the slide deck that we're using today. This was my recent blog post. And you can see I've iterated. I started with this, it generated this. I said, I gave it instructions on how to edit down um, these until I got to this kind of cartoon image. But creating images, I don't know, it's actually kind of fun to do. Um, but probably not part of your work world. And then all the chats um, are here. So everything I've ever asked it, whether I'm in Word, Outlook, whatever, are stored in my chat so I can get back to them again. Somebody asked if you can add documents from ND into notebooks. Um, I have not tried that, but if NetDocuments has your documents and it's available through the cloud, or you can link to them, or you can upload them, you should be able to add them to notebooks. So now I'm going to show you what this looks like in specific applications. I'm going to start with Excel first because honestly, this kind of had me shook today. So I started with this the survey responses for the practice management survey I did a couple of years ago. Thank you for anybody who's actually participated in it. So when I opened this spreadsheet up, it has I don't know how many. It's a lot of information, and it's also kind of really difficult to be helpful. I mean, in terms of getting through it. So I had put it into a table format, and then somewhere in here I had filtered it. So when I opened it, it only had about 16 rows, and I could not figure out what I had done to filter this. So the first thing I said is remove the table filters. I didn't feel like going through each and every one trying to figure out. So it says I've successfully removed the table filters from this. The auto filter has been cleared. So now I have all the data visible. It wasn't that it wasn't there. I just filtered it out. So I was like, awesome. The next thing I did was a little bit, and I didn't expect it to be able to do anything. I said, can you create a pivot table that shows private firm respondents that have adopted an AI policy? So it took it 20 steps to reason through this. And it was kind of cool to watch it think. about how it was going to do this. So it showed me all the steps, and it took a little while, and went through, showed me all the steps that it was taking, and then says, I think I've figured it out for you. It added a worksheet, shows me the pivot table, gives it a label, gives me basically created this all, and it says, I think question 28 was, has your firm adopted an AI policy? If you want to know the answer to that, in 2023, based on private firms, we had a fairly low percentage in 2023 of firms that had an AI policy. I'm sure if I went back and did it again, that would be a very different answer. But we have, 7% with a policy, um, no, at, 51% considering 13% don't know. So what's really interesting to me is that the questions are not in the header. So how did it know? Two things. One, I need to go back and double check the questionnaire itself to make sure that question 28 really was asking about AI policy versus AI adoption. So it could have gotten it wrong because it really doesn't know. Now, all of that information is in my OneDrive. So theoretically, it could have gone and looked for it, but I can't trust this to be right, as cool as it looks, because I can't verify that question 28 actually asked about policies versus adoption. So I'm going to have to go back and double check the work. So even though this looks like it's right, you you always have to verify, and it may in fact be dead wrong. So the way I did this was, I just opened this up. I clicked on the Copilot button, and it'll give me a opportunity to prompt. So if I want to start a new or remember context. So one of the things is, remember, allow editing. So I can say just chat only or allow to actually edit this document. Um, Describe what you want to do, give it more context. Now, if I had been smart, I would have added as my context the actual questionnaire, because the question, it would have told it what question one, question two, question three, was. So that would have been given it better context. Um, I can choose Claude Opus 4.5 or 4.6 or GPT 5.2, recognizing that I don't really know if it makes a huge difference. So auto is just fine. I do find that I tend to like what Claude spits out a little bit better. Um, and so on and so forth. So that's it in Excel. Somebody just asked for a recurring task and deliverables. Can you go over again the pros and cons of using workflow versus an agent versus a scheduled prompt? So if you are going to have some, just basically run a prompt across Outlook and your recently updated documents, I would probably just create a scheduled prompt, which all you have to do is go in, give it a prompt, and then, so let's see, um, reading emails and charts and giving it, a precise, concise summary, top three things that need to be, that I need to pay attention to. Um, you can run this, it'll give you the answer, and then you save it as a scheduled prompt. And it sits there and goes through. So and once it's done, I'll show you how to save it as a scheduled prompt. Then the other option is the using an agent, um, to create something specific. So that's kind of as it's necessary is when I use the agents, except for that workflow agent. And the workflow agent really, again, is just giving you a different interface into Power Automate. And that's where, again, instead of if you've ever used the Power Automate interface, you have to kind of build the logic. This builds the logic for you. So if this is something that you want to create as a workflow that you can trigger based on an event that happens. So a good instance for this would be if I get an email from this specific person with an attachment, save the attachment to this folder and send me a notification. Or if someone alters this file that I've shared, send me a notification, things like that. Things that you want, that basically it's a trigger event versus something that's just scheduled to run every day. Now, there's all sorts of ways you can use Power Automate, but if you need a distinction, that's how I would make it. Um, okay. Hold on just a sec. Let's see. I wanted to show you what it looks like in Word. And so let me open Word real quick. I say real quick. So Copilot in Word, the first thing you'll notice is it at the top of any Word document, it offers to write you a summary. And it's going to sit here and spin for a second. This is a very long document, so it created a very detailed summary. I don't necessarily even look at these because, quite frankly, I'm not sure that I wrote the document, so I better be able to do it. Now, if I needed to share an executive summary, then I could write a brief summary and look at it, make sure it's accurate, and send it to somebody. That might be a good use case for it. And I can just hit the copy button. I can open a new chat. So that's something that automatically shows up. Otherwise, you click on Copilot, um, and you can use it from everything for grammar checking, consistency, adding new content, pulling content from another document. There's there's endless possibilities for generate. You can tell it, um, look at this brief template and create a template with fill in the blanks. There's just so many different things. I'll have to do a whole Copilot in Word program, but to suffice it to say, again, you can add context, you can run a specific agent over it. Um, Up here, you can you cannot choose the model here. I don't know why. And then the other thing, remember, if you want it to be able to edit the document, allow editing or just chat. So right now, if I say, first you have to put the cursor where you want it to go. So we're going to go all the way to the bottom of this document and we'll say add a section using heading style 2 on reasons Copilot might add a section using heading style 2 on reasons Copilot might hallucinate. This might offend it. I don't know. I just want you to see that it will actually add content into a document. Um, and it has to think about it. And as it does it, well, while it's thinking about it, I'll go, okay, there you go. So it used heading two, like I told it to, and it gives you bullet points, and you can click undo or accept it. So I'm going to accept it, but then I'm going to say, um, can you rewrite that section in narrative third person prose? So now I'm telling it to edit what it just wrote. And then, of course, I will go back and check it. And this is why I tell it to not use M dashes. So otherwise, it just loves to use M dashes. So as you can see, in real time, it is using my instruction and rewriting its bullet points as narrative prose and paragraphs to match the rest of the document. So on and so forth. So that's Word. I'm going to click done, cancel out of this. All right. I want to show you an Outlook. So Outlook is a little bit different. Um, so if I go into send a new message, it basically offers to help me write right away. But that's often not where I need it. I need it in helping me respond. So in that case, I'm going to open an email to respond to, and I'm going to hit reply. And then it's already got this little button. I don't have to open Copilot necessarily. So I'm going to click this and it's going to say, what do you want this email to say? I can customize the draft. So this is custom instructions that I have saved to Outlook to tell it how to answer emails. Respond with a personalized greeting to recipients in the two-line hi name. Keep the response tone professional but personable. Respond directly to all questions asked. If the requester is looking for calendar availability, offer my Calendly link. Check my calendar availability if the requester has suggested dates. Close the email with thanks, Catherine. So that's all been set up in there. Then I'm gonna say respond and provide availability based on my calendar for September. Payment is due after. So I didn't have to give it all of the contacts because I've already saved it in there. And this is an email to me about scheduling Copilot training. What I didn't tell it is that one of her questions, so it didn't get it right because it didn't answer all the questions. One of the questions was she wanted a title and description for the program. So we want to, so then I'm basically giving it a little bit more instruction. Now, is it worth typing all these instructions versus just answering them myself? Meh. I don't know. What I also find it's useful if somebody asks me a difficult question that I'm struggling with the answer to make sure that it doesn't have a tone that I don't necessarily intend to shine through, it's very good for that. So now because I've set it off to look for other information in there. Okay, so I'm happy to move forward. I have availability in September. You can book a time here for payment, fees due after the program. Here's a sample title and description. Thanks. It also has the original response, or I can just respond myself. But it's also good for if you respond to an email and you can select it and say, suggest whether the tone seems, professional or whatever. So it's good for some stuff, and it does better than others on certain tasks. But that's, and again, you can open it up um, in the settings here, and where you give it the draft instructions, that's where you do it, or you can do it when you need them. You can also create a whole set of instructions for your calendar, um, which I have not done, but it is set up to handle mundane calendar instructions or task for you. If you are a Teams user, I know we're a little past time. I warned you that might happen, but I want to show you in Teams. If you record a meeting in Teams, and I did a Teams meeting recently, and I found this was very helpful because one of the people who was supposed to participate ended up being ill and wasn't able to participate. And then the other people, one of the guys who was on the call was actually in his car. So I know there's no way he was actually paying that much attention. So what it did was when I did the Teams meeting, I had it set up to record and facilitate. And what it did was it lets me chat with the meeting, and then also created a recap, showed me who was in attendance, um, the duration of the meeting, who when they got in, all the kinds of stuff. And then it gave me good notes, what our decisions were, what the agenda is, and what kind of next steps were. So I was easily able to share that out. It created a table of follow-up tasks. Again, um, they were all aware because it announces loudly that it's taking notes and facilitating the meeting. But I find that incredibly valuable. I think that is all I'm going to show you today. I think you probably have a fairly decent sense of what you can do in this. So I'm going to look through your questions real quick in the chat. Someone said a computer person said we're making PDFs in a fashion that creates problems for AI. We copy a letter or pleading, sign it, send it. The signed version as a PDF copy says that both greatly increases number of characters, but doesn't allow the AI to read the document as when it was saved as a PDF on the computer with electronic signature. Um, if the output of the PDF is not text searchable and it's a scanned image, then the AI cannot read it because there's no text layer. You can either save it directly from a computer file to PDF, so like Word to PDF, that has a completely accurate text layer. If you scan it and run OCR over it, that creates an adequate enough text layer. It's not going to be 100% perfect, but the AI should be able to read it. But to my knowledge, Copilot does not automatically OCR your PDFs. Some of these tools do. Um, but I think that's probably what he's talking about. And then the last question I have is the Hepner case, which is about AI and privilege, um, and concerns about commingling of data or potentially protected information using AI tools and apps. Um, I I think it's worth rereading Hepner and also being aware that there are other opinions that have come out that came to a totally different conclusion than Hapner. Um, and then thinking about your use, reading the terms of service. But I would be remiss in answering that question because that is a legal question. Um, so without a lot more facts that I wouldn't even be able to start talking about that. Anyhow, that is all the time we have. I'm going to stop the recording